Does your dog love a ball? But does your dog also display behaviours such as barking at you incessantly until the ball comes out, or not wanting to do anything else on their walk but chase a ball? This might mean that your dog has an unhealthy obsession with balls. You can see ball obsession amongst all different breeds, but it is particularly common in your gun dog type breeds, so Labradors such as Levi or Spaniels such as Truffle. Both of these dogs would perform very similar behaviours out on their walks. They would bark at their owners incessantly in order to get the ball. When the ball did come out, they were absolutely frantic over it. The owner wasn't even able to pick up the ball because they were constantly just trying to grab it back from them again. When they did have the ball in their hand, the dogs would be jumping up at them, trying to snatch it from them, and they generally just spent the walks really quite stressed and really frantic. They would also run over to other dogs' balls and try to steal them, so this could become potentially dangerous because it could cause a fight. So this was making walks really stressful for both of these owners and the dogs. So here's some tips you can try with your dog to see if you can curb their ball obsession. The first thing we want to be doing is taking away the ball altogether and start teaching our dogs some different activities that they can do outside. I usually recommend using food and coming up with some different games that are fun and exciting for your dog. So this could be ready catch, getting them to catch a bit of food. It could be playing recall games so they get to chase the food instead of the ball, or it could be some scent work. Just anything that's going to get their mind off of the ball and get them practicing different activities when they're outside, so they don't have this continuous expectation of having the ball the second they step out on their walk. The next step would be to think of a different toy that you could use to replace the ball. This could be something like a gun dog dummy, it could be a tug toy, it could be a Kong on a rope, it can be anything really, but we just want to start with a fresh, brand new toy which has no previous associations with it so that we don't have the obsessive behaviour present whilst we're training. The third step, once introducing the new toy, is to help your dog feel more comfortable around you whilst the toy is present. With this type of behaviour, it's all about tiny little steps. We can't be jumping forward too quickly. With Levi, when I first introduced the toy, I made sure he was allowed to interact with it in any way that he wanted, so I just put it down for him, let him pick it up, let him run around with it, and praise him for being around me with the toy. I'd make sure that I was rewarding him if I stepped towards the toy. When I did get to the stage of actually picking up the toy, I'd make sure that I was throwing a treat away from myself so that he was coming away from the toy. If I put the treat down right next to him, he would eat that treat in 2 seconds and his mouth would be straight back on the toy again. Once we've actually introduced the toy, we could then start to think about introducing a drop cue. So for Levi, I had to just totally redo his drop cue because the word drop had been poisoned. He basically knew that drop mean we were going to take the toy from him, so he would just clamp his mouth even further and would just run away with it. So I introduced a brand new word, out, which had a totally new context to it, which basically just meant food was on the floor. When I first started teaching him this, I didn't even have a toy present. I would literally just say the word out and I'd put a bit of food on the floor. I then introduced the same exercise, but with the toy present. Once he was picking up the toy, I would just say the word out and put the food on the floor at the same time. So I wasn't expecting him to drop the toy on the word straight away. It's still exactly the same thing. Out, food on the floor, out, food on the floor. So then he would start to drop the toy in order to go and pick up the food that was on the floor. So through this process, I would say the word out, and the moment he dropped the toy, I would mark and reward him, and I'd usually very quickly go and kick the toy away from him so he was allowed to take the toy back instantly. The fourth step is to now actually start playing with the new toy, but we want to do this with a little bit more structure than before so that your dog doesn't get themselves overexcited and then just start displaying the problematic behaviour that they did with the ball. One of the main issues with ball throwing is the repetitive nature of it and the fact that it gets your dog full of adrenaline whilst we're doing this. By adding a little bit more structure, it takes away some of that adrenaline and it gets your dog actually thinking a lot more whilst they're playing with you, and it means they're taking direction from you as well, which means it's a lot more mentally stimulating for them and it's a lot less likely that they're going to go into overdrive and get over aroused. All dogs are different, so in the case of Levi, he was not even able to do a sit or even a wait for a second before barking and getting really, really worked up. Just getting him to practice sitting and then doing a few seconds of a wait made a massive difference to him, and it allowed us to play with the ball but in a way that didn't get him quite so worked up. And because of the previous work we'd done, I was then able to pick up the ball again so that we could actually go and play. In the case of Truffle, she already had a good amount of steadiness despite the fact that she could get very frantic and ball obsessed, so I was very quickly able to do a more formal gun dog style retrieve where I can ask her to stay, walk away from her, throw or place the toy down, go back to her and send her to get the ball. Again, this gets her thinking a lot more than just throwing the ball back and forth over and over again. Once your dog is comfortable with their new toy, they're quite happy to drop it for you, you're able to pick up the toy, and they're really enjoying the interactions that you're having with the toy. You can then go back and repeat those steps with the ball. But also, you don't have to. It's absolutely fine for you just to continue with the new toy and phase out the ball altogether. Remember to keep these sessions short and sweet. Your dog will likely get very overexcited when there's a toy present, and we don't want them to go back into old habits, going back into barking, getting really worked up with the toy present. So keep your sessions nice and short and sweet. Just do maybe a few repetitions, so maybe 3 or 4 throws of the new toy. Then go and do something else with your dog. This might be some recall, this might be getting them to do some scent games, but just giving them a little break from that engagement, and then we can go back to it again. We hope you found this video useful and that you can use some of these tips to help curb your own dog's ball obsession. If you have any questions or if you want to find out more, give us a message or book in an assessment and we can help you with your dog.